So yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, we're not taking January 6th too seriously. I mean, the language is just so over the top. When you have Kamala Harris comparing it to 9/11, which something like 3,000 Americans died, or Pearl Harbor, which something like 2,300 American service personnel died, and January 6th, where one protester died, and you're comparing those events like they're equally tragic in American history. Maybe. Oh no, but it's what January 6th stood for.
Well, here's the thing, too.
More on that. Stay tuned.
Here's a cautionary tale. What happened after both of those scenarios that you just played out?
We went to war.
Exactly. So who are we going to war with right now?
Well, I can tell you the state is at constant war with us, the American people.
So, and then what happened right after January 6th? More mandates. They started rolling out the vaccine.
Yeah, and
the vaccine that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris said they'd never take because it's Trump's vaccine, right? Now they got it both shot into their arm, and they're telling you to get a third shot into your arm. The thing that they told you that was 100% effective the first shot, but it wasn't quite 100%. Anyway, the goalpost keeps moving. Keep going.
Well, and we covered at the time. Remember John Brennan, the former director of the CIA?
Yes.
Who was on MSNBC, and he just started rattling off like religious extremists and da-da-da-da, and he goes, and libertarians. We might have to go after libertarians.
Wait, what the fuck?
Now listen, here's the thing.
I thought you guys didn't even know we existed, and now all of a sudden we're extreme Islamic terrorists? What happened here?
Yeah, like we are nothing to fear and nothing to if you're into electoral politics, nothing to vote for because it's a waste to vote with a libertarian. And now all of a sudden they're an existential threat.
Every election
America.
cycle, we're the comedic. Let's let the slow kid onto the dais. Yeah, come on, libertarian. Yeah, oh, that's cute. Look, he's wearing a little suit.
Yeah, and I mean, so the argument for bombastic language like that, over the top language like that, is she could say, well, January 6th, it's not about, the body count, so to speak. It's about, what was at stake that day, right? And it's always democracy, right? Our democracy is at stake. It's this, on high, written from Mount Olympus itself, perfect thing, perfect ideal that we should achieve at all costs. Democracy or death, right? And
Give me liberty or give me death.
It ain't that great.
Well, here's the thing.
It's not that great.
Let's get a running tally. How many times over the past, let's just call it 2 decades, how many times has democracy prevailed in the favor of the proletariat?
Please don't use that word. You trigger me every time you use that goddamn word.
That's what I'm doing. I'm turning it up from like 6 with a gentle simmer. We're turning it all the way up to fucking 10, and let's just let you boil over the top.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing government understands is force because that's what it is implicitly.
So where's the democracy?
So it's
where's
not
our
going to happen
choice?
on its own.
Where's the population's choice? We chose them? Well, did we choose them? Because apparently the Republicans have been cheating by gerrymandering jurisdictions, and apparently the Democrats have been cheating by mail-in ballots. So where's the democracy? Where's our choice? If we're being cheated on both ways of being able to put our vote in, or, I mean, Russia or Trump was Russia's infiltrator, and this last one, Biden was elected on a false premise of mail-in ballots. So we haven't had a real president in the past 6 years, coming on 6 years. So where's our democracy?
Right. But even more fundamentally, because I agree with you, heavy corruption in the structure of how democracies work. And this, I mean, we are obviously giving American examples because we're in America, but this happens in every country on planet Earth. There is no, ideal or perfect democracy. But even at a more fundamental level, let's say none of that was happening. Let's say democracy was functioning exactly as they have built it up to be their ideal. I think it's Hans-Hermann Hoppe made this distinction between democracy and, more where the control is actually in either the hands of the people or he was talking about a monarchy, is that in a democracy, all of the decision makers are just temporary stewards, right? So just like you as the renter in a house, you have much less incentive to treat that house, not put holes in the wall and all that kind of stuff than if you owned it, right? So in that case, in a perfectly functioning democracy, all of the decision makers would still be motivated by the same, should I spend money now because it's temporarily going to buy me votes? That's all I care about. I don't care about 100 years from now when everybody's in debt slavery.
Or should I vote on this bill in a certain way because it'll make me a huge windfall right now, and if I don't get elected, then at least I always have that money to fall back on.
Right. So how democracy actually works at its core function, even in its most perfect form, incentivizes poor decision making. So we can take the good, the bad, the evil out of it and just look at human beings and how do human beings act, and you create incentives that incentivize bad decision making, you're going to get bad decision making.
Which again,
this is not that complicated. So David laid out the corruption that's very clearly happening. I laid out the perfect utopian example is not going to work. And still there's one more solid argument against democracy. I shared this on some of our social medias. I made a TikTok about it. So I'll let David see because he hasn't. It's a tweet thread. A Rosemary Potter is tweeting and then responses. So this is how the average person who's voting thinks. She says, quote, Glenn Youngkin, if you don't remember, he's the Republican governor-elect in the state of Virginia. He hasn't taken office yet. She says, Glenn Youngkin, hundreds are stranded on I-95 in Virginia for hours. Does Governor Youngkin care? Of course not. Proof Virginia voted for the wrong person for governor. She's very upset, doesn't like this guy. Loved blackface Ralph Northam. A David Can responds, Youngkin ain't governor yet, still the other guy, right? Because he hasn't taken office yet. He's been elected, but he's not the one calling the shots right now. To which Rosemary responds, thank goodness. Governor Northam has put together teams to clear the highway and take stranded drivers food and drinks. He cares. You see how quickly all of that happens? You see? So like that person who is so tribalistic really thinks that they're very smart, but very, very ignorant, i.e. the Dunning-Kruger effect. Those kind of people are the ones that we're losing our minds over not being able to have a hand in the decision-making process of this country.
And that brings us back to my fulcrum of this argument, is that for all the people that are reminding you that today is, or that last Thursday, because this is Monday, right? Last Thursday, was January 6th. One of the darkest days in our history.
Darkest.
So
dark.
Days. One of the darkest.
It was cloudy that day, wasn't it?
Depends upon where you live. In California, probably fucking sunny. Down here in the Sunshine State, probably fucking sunny. Everywhere else, probably pretty cloudy. Don't want to hate on you, but you hate us because you ain't us. Anyway, all I'm going to say is that on that darkest day, in our darkest hour, had been preceded by at least 3 months of mostly peaceful protests that burned buildings down, that threw Molotov cocktails into political buildings, that overthrew police buildings, that did this, that, and the other, that affected actual human lives, that killed a lot of people during the protests that weren't really reported, but there was mayhem and chaos, and they said that it was mostly peaceful and we should just let them express themselves.
Yes, there was, shall we say, a bit of a double standard.